Let's start off by getting your reaction to Man City's 2-0 victory against Everton at the Etihad Stadium at last weekend. It was that man again in the headlines, wasn't it? Erling Haaland. He just can't stop scoring at the moment. Just as Pep Guardiola's side were looking a bit limp and Everton were growing in confidence at the start of the second half, Haaland came to the rescue for City, scoring 2 goals in the space of 5 minutes to secure all 3 points for City. We've spoken a lot, haven't we, Stephen, about Erling Haaland this season? And is there anything else you'd like to say more about Haaland? Is there anything more we can actually say about Haaland at the moment?
Yeah, I think there is actually. I think he's making improvements in his game. As good as a goal scorer Haaland has always been, a phenomenal goal scorer. I think he's actually changed his game a little bit. I think there are signs in it. I was reading some analysis over the weekend, and the one thing that struck me before I even read anything was that he's definitely better in the air. Like he's scoring headers now at a much more aggressive rate, and I think a lot of it comes down to attacking the ball. There were times over the last year or two where City fans have felt a little bit frustrated by Erling Haaland's movement, which sounds crazy given his Erling Haaland. But he had a tendency to wait at the back post for a cross to come. That rarely did because Doku wasn't playing that pass and City weren't. Now he's moving for the ball a lot more in the area. Obviously, his finishing has always been the highest of the highest quality. But there were times when he was a little bit stationary, and there was a frustration from that. And you look at his goals. He drops back to make the space when O'Reilly pings it up, and then he attacks the ball aggressively with the header. And the second one as well, he goes to the ball. He understands that Doku isn't going to do dinked crosses to the back post. He's going to pass it back to someone because of how Doku works. So he comes short for him. Sorry, he comes short for where Doku usually is. I know it's Savino actually, so I correct myself there. But that's what he needs to start learning with Doku anyway. That Doku will go short and play passes, and there's a very City Doku Haaland scenario. Of course, it's Savino this time with the ball instead, but he goes to he attacks the space, finds some, and he gets a shot from nearly the edge of the area where previously he would have been hanging around at the back post. So I think he's been looking at his own game and his own movement and working on that. And as I said, I do think he's even more aggressive aerially. He's scoring a lot of headed goals. And they are something that, despite being 6'5", wasn't always his, I would say, his strongest point. You know, he was a massive guy, but definitely more of a runner in behind. A lot more in common with Vardy than Peter Crouch, put it that way, you know. So yeah, I think he's getting better. I think there's a real hunger to his game. He should, of course, had a hat trick, maybe even 4 goals, because 2 or 3 were put on a plate for him towards the end. But it doesn't matter. Right now, Haaland is in sensational form, and he's talisman. He's absolutely world class and playing at standards that are, well, to me, they were unimaginable. Like, even when I was growing up, no one was scoring goals at this rate. You'd think of some of the greatest names in football history. When I was a kid, it was like the original Ronaldo and people like that. And you talk about your Shevchenkos and your Vieiras and Shearers. No one was scoring goals at this rate. So what he's doing right now is truly special. But somehow he's normalised it to the point where we just, oh yeah, it's just Erling Haaland things, crazy things.
Yeah, it's just, ridiculous this run that he's on. I think it's 23 goals now in something like 13 games for club and country. It's quite incredible. And we've
Nearly a goal, 2 goals a game, nearly. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And we spoke a little bit last week on, how it'll be nice to see more of City's attackers contributing to goals as well as Haaland. And Guardiola touched on that after the match. He was sort of admitting that it is a bit of a concern that his team are so reliant on Haaland's goals because City have now scored a Premier League high 17 goals and Haaland has 11 of those. Haaland's also the only City player to score more than 1 goal in the Premier League this season. We're 8 games in now. So, Guardiola said that he's optimistic that his attacking players will unlock, in his words, and that they can, find some form soon. He's been impressed with what they've been doing in training, but now some of those do need to step up in matches. And I guess one question that I think a lot of City players have is which one of those is going to be the man to step up. So, Stephen, who do you think is going to be, who are going to be the ones you think that sort of, maybe take the game by the scruff neck and say, I'm the man for you, Pep. I'm the one that can be trusted in these next coming games because City have got some big games coming up as well, haven't they? So
Mhm.
it could be those players that maybe step up for City.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need more goals. That's absolutely right. Guardiola has said extensively that we need goals from other people. Haaland's doing his bit, and we have players, as he said as well afterwards, that we can score goals. You know, Phil Foden won PFA Player of the Year, bagging 27 goals or something like that in one season. We've seen Shirky score, I think, 15, 16 goals last season over in the French league, and we know that there is uh, potential goals from Tijan and Reinders and so on. It's a shame Rodri's not currently playing because he's always got good for 10 to 15 goals a season, maybe 10, 11, maybe actually. But we have to see more from Oscar Bob, Savino, and Doku in front of goal. I don't think Doku's ever been a great goal scorer, and likewise Savino, but they're only reasonably young. I know Oscar Bob can score goals. I've seen him do a lot for the academy, but there's an element of confidence, conviction that's lacking currently there. I do think whoever starts putting up the numbers will claim the shirt. It's as simple as that. Guardiola will lead on to the guy who gets the results. And look, there's plenty more ways to contribute than other than directly with goals and assists. And look, Phil Foden didn't technically get any assists at all at the weekend, but pretty certain those goals don't really happen without his involvement. But the guy who scores goals, he's going to get the shirt simply because we can't lean on Haaland that much. I suspect Marmoush and Shirky returning will make a difference there. Shirky has a hunger for goals. Of course, he nearly scored within minutes of coming on substitute at the weekend. His shot was blocked. Marmoush is definitely going to score if he's on the pitch, and I think he will be one that you can reasonably lean on because he has that sort of killer attitude in front of goal. I think the other wingers are reasonably apologetic when they get through. They don't have that total conviction. Savino, for example, when the ball was played through to him, and he sort of tried to cross it instead, like think it's the back post instead of putting his laces through it. I don't know what he's doing, and Oscar Bob's a little bit reluctant to shoot as well. They have to be better at that. But I do think someone's going to step up. My general theory when you've got quality players is that if someone needs to step up, usually someone does because people rise to the challenge. And City have found solutions in previous years where when Aguero was missing, for example, we went false nine or so, and Gundogan started scoring goals, and we had Bernardo and Mahrez and Foden and Gundo all rotating as false nines with De Bruyne too. Look, the quality maybe isn't quite as high as that, but um, yeah, brilliant players have brilliant solutions usually. So I'm expecting someone to step up. I'm hoping it'll be Shirky and Marmoush. I'd like to see those guys involved, and I think they've got a reasonably good chance, the pair of them, to put a marker down to start regularly.